Welcome back to another reading and correcting with me, Kindar the Tiger Writes, and Ty, the Tiger Supervisor. These are where I read a chapter from one of my stories and correct it as I go. If you want to listen to these live, it's every Tuesday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time on Twitch and YouTube. And if you are looking to support me, that is on my Patreon. Today we're doing Chapter 9 of The Technician's Fight. Update, he tapped on his tablet. Let's start this. I'm going to need it. He tapped on his tablet, not paying attention to the Kelsirians arguing in front of the adjudicators. He's at the gym, talking with a pair there. That was good. Him interacting with people on the ship would strengthen his position that Jeremy wasn't suffering from anything or being held against his will, which could have been brought up if, as Gralgiran had worried, his heart decided to stay in their home working on one of his projects. What he and his betas had realized was that they lacked information on the Earthers to... what he and his betas had realized was that they lacked information on the Earth. They lacked too much information on the Earthers to plan an effective attack. All they knew for certain was that they were willing to lower themselves to Tahornian's levels of duplicity to get what they were after. They decided that if they couldn't plan for an attack, anticipating theirs was the best course to take. With Jeremy not being in the assigned quarters on the station, the Earthers would accuse him of preventing them from getting the truth from him. The Earthers would accuse him of... no, not that. Because there's going to be a session after that with Jeremy, so that's not valid. They would accuse him of holding him against his will. The fact that, as with the previous time, they weren't to confront the Earthers together, as per Earth's demand, wouldn't matter to them. So, he'd preemptively given his security beta access to the private security room. He didn't want to risk Jeremy going somewhere private, keeping him from responding, preventing a proper response to the Earther's accusation. As an added precaution against the Earther's duplicity, he had his investigation pack hack their ship system so they'd get warning of their next attempt at duplicity. I don't need this one. Of their next attempt. The Kelsirians grew silent, and the adjudicators rendered their judgment. Neither was happy. Gralgiran hoped for a better resolution for the situation the Earthers were forcing on him. He's exercising with the female from the pair, appeared as he was called. That could be a problem but nothing he could do. But one he could do nothing about. He put his tablet away and headed to the central table, as the Earthers did the same. That exercising would look like Jeremy was fighting with someone on his ship to the Earthers. Hopefully, one of them was sufficiently knowledgeable with Kelsirian exercises to accept his explanation. As the Earther took their seat, one of the adjudicator... Okay, I'm going to... the other Ridoshi adjudicator stood. It is Ridoshi, right? Yep. The other Ridoshi adjudicator stood, ceding their seat to an elderly Kelsirian in adjudicator robes. More than the age of the male, the fact there was a change in adjudicator Uh, made him wonder. Okay, this is more than the age of the male. The fact that there was a change caught his attention. Caught his attention. As far as he was aware, adjudicator boards didn't change until the shift was over, and they all retired for new ones to take their place. The Earthers didn't pay attention to it. He tried to find Jeremy's father among them, but all Jeremy had been able to tell him was that he had brown eyes, salt and pepper hair, was in his late 50s, and slightly overweight. All the pictures of his family were on the tablet that had remained on Einstein's station. Maybe he wasn't even there. Jeremy was who they could expect him to be effective against. This adjudication is in session, the Kelsirian adjudicator said. The Earther government against the Kelsirian captain Gralgiran Sel El Ravnir. The Kelsirian captain is represented in person. The Earther government is represented by Carl Munro. The claim is the unjustified holding of an Earth citizen by a Kelsirian. The Earthers can make their case. Thank you, your honored adjudicator, the Earther representative said, standing. In federalized so crisp, Gralgiran wondered if they'd gotten one of the station's mentalists to teach it to them. I want to start by making it clear that we aren't accusing the captain of any wrongdoing, that we believe he acted in what he felt was the best interest of someone he believed cared for him. Believed cared for him? The Kelsirian adjudicator said, it is my understanding they are hearts. That the captain believed they are, adjudicator, the Earthers countered. Heart is not a matter of belief. But those involved have to be of right mind to make that claim, do they not? They both have to be sane. The Earther glanced. The Earther's glance in Gralgiran's direction was furtive, while two of the 6 others outright looked at him, as if expecting a reaction. Maybe they didn't know the leadership had warned him of the charges. Maybe, based on their previous interaction with them, they were under the impression the leadership was willing to sacrifice him to avoid having part of the blame fall on them. Sanity of Kelsirian, Jeremy Bradshaw, the reduced educator said, established. The result of analysis of Earther caused mind torture. Produced report to state of sanity prior to torture. Ridoshi's fluid mindset meant they never spoke with certainty. Gralgiran did his best to not have to deal with them. Yes, the Reosef educator replied. As part of establishing the damage caused by the torture, the Viper's Bane psychologist provided a report on the Kelsirian citizen. No indicator of insanity were found. Yes, the Earther said. I don't doubt that. Then what is the basis of your claim? The Tehornian adjudicator asked. That while Jeremy Bradshaw is sane now, he wasn't when he initially demanded to be taken in by the Kelsirian. The past is not subject to adjudication, the Reosef stated. It is if it has an impact on the present. If it has an impact on the present, it is, the Earther said, as per provision D29B83. That the educator had to pull out their tablets showed how deep the provision was, reinforcing that the Earthers had an ally with better understanding of the Federation procedures than even the appointed adjudicators. Maybe even one of them. His most likely candidate was the Tehornian. Provision found, the Ridoshi stated. Old, but never contested, the Kelsirian educator said. The Earther representative can continue making his case. Thank you, Your Honor. He looked at Gralgiran. Captain, how would you describe Jeremy's behavior while on your ship? Professional, dedicated, hard-working, he answered without hesitation. How about his behavior while in your presence? He narrowed his eyes, flexing his claws under the table. Your Honor, Earther said, may I have permission to treat the captain as a hostile witness? There is no fighting in the education chamber, the Reosef declared, taking the Earther by surprise. I apologize. Maybe the expression doesn't carry over to federalize? As the captain isn't answering my question, I ask permission to narrow my questions so he won't be able to avoid answering or give evading answers. Captain, the Kelsirian educator said, you will answer the Earther representative. Jeremy was uncomfortable in my presence. He knew better than to add his explanations. It would be dismissed by the educator and have him and make him look like he was trying to defend himself. The Earther consulted his tablet. Uncomfortable? Wouldn't it be more accurate to say erratic, that he screamed at you to leave him alone? It happened once. He answered as the Kelsirian educator opened his mouth to order him. Jeremy had considered the doctor who treated him as a friend. It made sense he would have confided in him how he felt about Gralgiran's presence. Didn't you think it was indicative of him not wanting to be there? I considered an indication he didn't like that I intruded into his territory. I'm sorry. Is this another expression that doesn't carry over? Jeremy was my ship's engineer for the duration. He replied, keeping his voice flat. Engineering was his territory. My presence there might have been interpreted to be a lack of confidence in his ability. You're making a supposition, Captain. I'm telling you what my engineer has screamed at me more than once. Still, the Earther said, sounding unsure this time, it does show that Jeremy's behavior didn't have the stability he was known for. I have reports from his superior noting that Jeremy is one of the most emotionally stable persons she's had working under her, that even in life or death situation, he retains a level-headedness that lets him deal with the situation rationally and solve the problem. Since demanding you take him on, that has Jeremy showed that kind of level-headedness? Yes. Representative, the Turonian educator said, you are establishing that the Kelsirian citizen doesn't meet the requirement for being considered insane. What are you doing? There was a hiss under the words Gralgiran had learned to associate with Turonians being annoyed. I am establishing what Jeremy is like when sane, Your Honor. His erratic behavior when working on the captain's ship doesn't match that. First time meeting other species, the Redoshi educator said. For someone who can remain emotionally stable while disarming an antimatter reactor in the process of overloading? The Earther countered. This establishes that Jeremy Bradshaw was not sane when he requested to be taken in by the captain. I find it convenient, the Kelsirian educator said. This claim of insanity is passing, lasting only the duration of the incident you disagree with. Captain, was Jeremy Bradshaw checked out by your medical staff after joining your ship? Yes. Was he treated for anything? I don't know. I provided documentation from Jeremy Bradshaw's doctor going back to when he was first diagnosed, that he is afflicted with encephalothromyopil darnimal. That is a medical condition we, Earthers, don't have a cure for. The best we can provide those suffering from it is ongoing treatment to keep the symptoms under control. As you can read, one of the effects of not treating it is a deterioration of cognitive faculties. We discovered after the fact that Jeremy stopped taking his medication a few days before the captain arrived at the station requesting assistance. It is entirely possible that Kelsirian's medicine has a cure for the condition and that they administered it without realizing what they were curing, since they didn't have the complete medical information on his species. I'm not a medic, Gralgiran answered when the Earther looked at him. He nodded as if that was the answer he'd wanted. We can't go back and test Jeremy's state of mind during the incident, the Earther said. And it has most likely been cured now. So all we are left is his behavior during that time frame. A behavior that has been documented by his friends, his superiors, and the station's commanding officer, all of which indicate that there was something not entirely right in how Jeremy Bradshaw behaved in the days leading to him demanding to be taken in by the captain. If Kelsirian citizen Jeremy Bradshaw now sane, the ROSF educator said, he can make claim now and be valid. That isn't acceptable, the author said. He's been exposed to Kelsirian culture for more than a year now. Even without meaning to, they can have polluted his mind with beliefs and behaviors, plural, that no human would ever consider engaging in. In fact, when he presents himself before this board, I plan on showing that the Earther to his left drew his attention to the tablet in his hands. Where's Jeremy Bradshaw? the president asked. On my ship, Gralgiran replied before one of the educators could ask why the representative knew Jeremy was in the provided quarters. Federation protocols required that the people to come before the board be housed on the station where the education takes place. Captain, the Kelsirian educator said, why are you breaking protocol? The last time Jeremy came to this station, while an Earther ship was docked, he was kidnapped and tortured. I considered it prudent not to allow this to happen again. That isn't how this goes, the Earther snapped. If he isn't going to respect the protocol, he's forfeiting the case. Earther representative, be calm. Precedent for safety measures exist. Yes, the Kelsirian representative said. Concession can be made when there is concern for the safety of one of the parties, but I don't think this warrants it. My government gave me authority to keep Jeremy safe, Gralgiran said. Feel free to check with them. The educators looked at each other. That doesn't matter, the Earther said. It doesn't matter who gave him permission. For all I know, they have him locked in a room, training him for the answers he's going to give. Why would the captain need to do such a thing if the Kelsirian Jeremy Bradshaw is sane, as you claim? The Tauronian educator asked. Why should I know how he thinks? How about he brings Jeremy here right now so we can judge for ourselves? No, but I can show you he's fine. We can't trust video feeds. You made that claim, Captain. I can't trust recordings of the events, he replied. But the Earther representative makes a point that you can show us what you want us to see, the Kelsirian educator said. Captain, the Kelsirian educator said, you will hand over control of your ship's surveillance to this board for the duration needed to establish that technician Jeremy Bradshaw is not being held against his will in any capacity. He activated the comm. Beta, Batrix, Selder Bills, Jezbil. Captain, you are to transfer control to the education board. I don't think that's a good idea. Beta, the Kelsirian educator said, cutting into what should have been a private link. This is adjudicator Baristramiral for Teroya Gramar. You will hand over control of this board, or your captain, and his ship will face serious repercussion. Am I being understood? Yes, adjudicator. Transferring control over now. The view that appeared in the center of the chamber was that of one of the exercising room, by the large mart covering most of the floor. On the opposite end of the camera, two forms were on the mat. Jeremy, by the lack of fur, and someone under him. What are they doing to him? The Earther demanded. Exercising. Gralgiran replied as the view shifted closer and he realized he was wrong. A detail he'd missed previously was how much skin was exposed. All of it. Jeremy was naked, with someone's leg over his shoulders and thrusting hard. Oh, someone said. What the fuck? One of the Earthers said. The color pattern of the fur was quite familiar to him and he smiled. The angles changed, showing that Tom was also naked, and with how matted the fur on his stomach was, he was enjoying this as much as Gralgiran did. When he told Jeremy he'd have to corner Tom to resolve this, he hadn't expected things to go in that direction. The image vanished as Tom's arm reached around Jeremy's neck. Oh. Okay. All right. I see why my co-scriptor thought. Okay. All right. I need, yes. Okay. This is too vague. The Kelsirian educator said, surprised. What the fuck? One of the Earthers said the color pattern first was quite familiar, and he smiled. Um. Uh. Pa, 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 pa. Da. The image vanished as Tom's arm reached around him. Oh, the educator said, breathless, this is just too much. Yes, finally, one of you admits that is wrong. The triumph in the Earther's voice surprised Gralgiran. Wrong? The Terhornian asked. You heard him? He pointed to the Kelsirian educator, who looked like he'd run too much for his age. The male chuckled. You misunderstood my reaction. At my age, that is excitement I need to build up to slowly. That was, he smiled, quite a shock. No, that was wrong. We don't do that. They're forcing that on him. Nothing I saw indicated the other was forcing this, the Toronian educator said. The positions seem to indicate that the Kelsirian, Jeremy Bradshaw, is in control of the sex happening. This establishes Kelsirian Jeremy Bradshaw willing Kelsirian? The Redoshi educator said. I believe it does. The Kasatoran educator said. No, this isn't over. I demand to talk to Jeremy Bradshaw. You will have your chance, Representative, the Terronian educator said. But this was about establishing if the Kelsirian Jeremy Bradshaw wanted to be Kelsirian. The actions show he does. No, they don't. They've brainwashed him into thinking that's right. Have him bring Jeremy here, and I'll prove it to you. Kelsirian Jeremy Bradshaw will present himself when requested by the board, the Riosef educator stated. They looked at the others. We'll determine time and contact parties. You can go. Gralgiran fought not to run, both because it would be inappropriate and because he wanted to give Jeremy and Tom time to enjoy each other. And that concludes Chapter 9 of The Technician's Fight. If you are enjoying this, please leave a like. If you want to know when the next chapter will be up, subscribe, hit the bell. If you want to read this story, it is available on Ream Story. And if you want to listen to these live, it's every Tuesday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time on Twitch and YouTube. Links are in the notes, and with that, I shall wish you a good day.